he posted. Go ahead, pull this up. So here, I'll read it off to the crowd. He said, "Where do you find the strength? I want to leave the country before the military coup and the Fourth Reich rise out of what used to be America. Anyone who worked in the government or veterans have input. You don't have to comment, but a reassuring DM would be great. I never trusted the system, but now I really don't trust American institutions to stop the violence he will usher in. I can't go to the store without seeing red literally and figuratively. It's hard to not think of these people as my enemy. Every day I have to remind myself they were duped by the system to not fly into a fit of rage. My belief in class solidarity gives me strength and some hope that these people are redeemable. That's supposed to say redeemable, but I wanted to point out his grammatical error there. However,
Betty.
However, it gets worse and worse. I can't even stomach going to a family Christmas event with these quote-unquote Christians who voted for their false idol. He is not righteous. He is a rapist. They voted for him because he supports their values. The truth is, he doesn't and never have. But on some level, maybe he does support their values, and maybe they are all rapists. Slugs for salt, as they say."
Well, now here's the deal.
Unifying.
You could make the case Trump isn't a rapist, and it's been proven by the courts, because I read just like 2 days ago.
Oh, we'll talk about the lawsuit.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. Yeah.
Okay.
He's not. So here's the thing, is what people don't realize. And they just fail to figure this out. The majority of the people that voted for Trump, he's not their idol.
Yeah.
The same way that the majority of the people who voted for Kamala, she's not their idol. They just said, hey, I think that my life is going to be easier under this guy. His policies make more sense, and they voted for him. That's literally all it was. There was no idolatry involved. But they can't figure that out. They can't, like, in their minds, in this, like, echo chamber they're in, everyone who voted for Trump is in this just deranged death cult, and it's just not the case.
It's the idea that, like, everybody who voted for that person, well, any person at all, who is like 100% supportive of everything that they say.
Nobody is.
And no one is. It's just you only have two choices.
Yeah, two real choices. Yeah.
I mean, you could pick,
you go for Jill
Bill
Stein.
Cosby. You know what I mean? And, obviously prescription medications would get a lot cheaper under him. But
those stocks would go way up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your pharmaceutical stocks would skyrocket.
Sleeping pills would be dirt cheap.
Dude, I mean, you're talking like 2 cents a pill. Yeah, absolutely.
Almost like just find one in every person's cup.
That's right.
At least they have a D cup. It leaves her better.
But here's my thing with this is like, so, I mean, think about like traumatic events people have, right? Girlfriend breaks up with you, dog dies, lose your job, whatever. That first like week is really rough, right? That first week is really rough, and it's tough for people to function, and that can vary. It can go a little bit shorter, a little bit longer, depending on the person. But the first couple of days afterwards is really tough. Now, I'm not saying that the election should have been traumatic for these people, but it was. And that's a whole other conversation as to why it was. I think they're nuts, but for whatever reason, it was traumatic for them. But my concern here is that when you experience a traumatic event like that, like I said, the first couple days are really rough, but you start to get over it.
Yeah.
You start to get over it, or you just start to learn to live with it, and it doesn't consume you the way that it did right after the initial event. That's not happening here. They get worse and worse. And the thing is, this is what this guy's willing to admit to the public. What's he thinking in his head? Because we all have inside thoughts that we don't want to say out in public.
He wants him to die.
What's that? He wants him to die.
You know it. He probably supports Luigi.
He probably does. Yeah. Who we'll talk about in a little bit too. But it's just like, how far off are we from these people walking into Christmas dinner with a gun? Because they're not getting better. They're getting worse.
Yeah.
They're not learning how to cope. They're not getting numb. They're just refusing to accept it and getting more and more angry.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's how long until we start seeing, and we just saw this at a school in California. You had a guy walk into a Christian school with a gun for vengeance for Gaza or something like that.
Wisconsin.
That was a different one. They didn't report on this California school.
Okay.
He didn't, thank God, I don't think he killed anybody. but he walked in, he shot 2 people, they both lived. But they're going to start targeting traditionally conservative places like Christian schools, like churches, and places like that. And it's seriously, it's just, I don't know what to do with these people because there's so many of them out there that are just broken. And yeah, of course, not all of them are going to wig out and go on violent killing sprees, but a couple of them are. Like, they are. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when people, and I'm not saying this guy in particular, but a matter of when people like this snap, because some of them are going to snap and kill somebody or try to. And it's just, that's the scary part. There's so many ticking time bombs walking around right now. And I don't know.
It's, to me, I don't know, man. I look at it. You know, I'm against extremes on both sides.
Sure, yeah.
And I just get over it, dude.
Just move on. Go to
Move
work.
on with your day. Like, there's more. I understand not liking the politicians involved.
Sure.
But you're talking about, like, I want to leave the country. Then leave the freaking country.
Leave. Yeah.
Oh, it's expensive. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is expensive. So maybe just tough it out for 4 freaking years.
Right.
It ain't like Trump hasn't been president before.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Like that's the thing.
And yeah, like January 6th was a big deal. He didn't relinquish power like he should have.
Sure.
He should just gave it up.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
But he did give it up eventually.
He eventually did.
Yeah.
You know, it cost the life of that Ashley Babbitt chick. That chick.
She was a retard, though.
She tried to hop the wall to
She shouldn't-
Capitol, and she took one hot and solid.
She shouldn't have gone in there, and I'll maintain that and that's unpopular with a lot of my audience. Ashley Babbitt was a retard. Anyone who went into the Capitol was a retard. They were clearly trying to bait you guys to go in there so that the incoming administration could go look at this conservative extremist threat. There were feds on the ground. They've proven that now. They had 26 FBI assets on the ground, many of whom went into the Capitol. Of course, they were trying to bait you so they could have the excuse to go after you for the next 4 years, and you idiots took the bait. So, like, that's why. No, I agree. There are a lot of people from the January 6th thing that should be pardoned, but not all of them. There were people that legit broke the law that need to sit in jail for a little bit for what they did on January 6th.
But
anyway, sorry.
I know you're fine. You're fine. But it's just the whole thing. Like, it is not like. First thing, okay, so my first thing is, you want to leave the country, what country do you want to go to?
Right.
There are no perfect countries.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
People think about this, these utopias.
None of them.
Like, a lot of people point to Scandinavian countries, Norway and Sweden.
Lots of problems. Yep.
They have immigration problems. They have problems with racism and stuff like that, because they're dealing with immigrants too. You know what I mean? A lot of them, and I look, obviously I'm an African immigrant, Plymouth Rock landed on me or whatever.
Right.
You know what I mean? But so I'm not saying Africans are bad people. Clearly, I don't believe Africans are bad people.
Sure.
But they're dealing with some African immigrants that are tearing the cities up.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like Oslo and Stockholm. You know what I mean?
Yep.
They're dealing with their own gang problems,
Yep.
And again, that's a whole, the causes and whatever are what they are.
Yeah.
But I'm not getting into all that. But you're not going to run away from those issues by leaving America.
No. Well, you'll inherit new issues like, the constant threat of Russia breathing down your neck. If you move to like Finland.
And they have, like Finland.
Yeah.
And, they have their own ways of dealing with it, their own ups and downs. Every country has their own ups and downs. And maybe I just want to avoid extremism.
Yeah.
But you understand, like, a lot of times they pick, European countries. And again, it's always like either Canada, which Canada's its own thing.
Sure. Well, they're falling apart. We'll talk about that later in the show too.
But they'll pick like Norway and Sweden and Denmark. A lot of these people, they always pick like Scandinavia.
That are 90% white.
Yeah, okay, and that's my other thing too. Or you picking like why? Okay, why is it always a white country?
Right. Yeah. You go to Mexico. Mexico's closer than all of them. Why don't you want to go to Mexico?
And it's warm and it's way cheaper.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Drugs are legal for the most part.
That's right. Surgery's cheap.
Yeah.
Go to Mexico.
Yeah. Oh, you don't like because they don't have good water.
Yeah.
Get out of my face. Get out of my face. Get out of. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you can't handle it. Stay in America, dude.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing with the moving out of America. You're right. It is expensive. A lot of things in life are.
And another thing. Let's be 100% honest. If people forget this, dude. Especially people on the left. And I'm not attacking either side, but people on the left, they piss me off sometimes. other country, America is such an open country to immigration. And I'm cool with it. I like it. Okay. America's, I think we're a different story than most other countries. We're not like a France or a China. We have like our own cultures and all that. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Well, we do have our own culture.
Yeah, but we're a new country.
Right.
Right, there's no like American ethnicity besides your wife, and we stole that.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, we won that in a war. Make that clear.
Multiple, but
several wars. They kept trying, and they kept losing.
But it's not the same. It's not the same. It's not like Italian culture or like Romania or something like that, right? Those other countries are very tough on immigration, though. Yeah, like I looked up like how do you become like a French citizen? It's not easy.
No, it's hard. It's hard to move to Canada.
Yeah, hard to move. They don't let anybody in. Like no. You have your own country. Stay in there.
Well, I mean, countries like France, Nordic countries, Switzerland, places like that. It's like you said, they have a culture they want to protect, and that's why they're more selective about who they let in, or they were for a long time, not so much anymore.
Yeah.
But they were more selective about who they would let in, and that's part of the problem here. Is you're right, we don't have the deep-seated history that an Italy or a France does, but we do have our own kind of American culture here. And when you let a bunch of people in from third world countries, when you inherit the third world, you become the third world.
Yeah.
And it's like I hate to break it to everybody, but American culture is superior to Venezuelan and Haitian culture. It is. If you look at the state of America compared to those two countries, yes, objectively, we are better off than them. And I don't mind taking people from those countries, but we got to be careful that what happened in Springfield doesn't happen, which is where you get 20,000 people from Haiti put into a town of 60,000 people, and all of a sudden the culture is entirely shifted because a fourth of the population is now from one demographic where they do things totally different than we do here, which is what you've seen in Europe. But to go back to your point on moving from America, yes, it is expensive to move. It is difficult to move. What I have found in my long 29 years, almost 29 years on this planet, is that most things, not all, but most things that are worth doing are difficult and usually kind of expensive.
Yeah.
And you deal with it because that's something you want to do. So if you guys are talking all this shit about moving out of America and you haven't done it, it's because you really don't want to do it all that bad, because you're blowing smoke out of your ass. You like the idea of it. You like talking about it. You don't actually want to leave.
That's really what it is. They don't actually want to do it.
No.
Because they like clean water.
Yeah.
They like having the TV shows that we have.
They're like the Nebraska football fan. I'm never watching a game again after they choke away. The next Saturday, they're right back in front of the TV.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Same exact concept with America. I just hope that we can do something about the serious mental health crisis that's coming from that is going to explode in our faces from this election. And it wasn't this election was the trigger event, but this has been boiling for a while. It wasn't just all these people lost their minds on November 5th, This has been budding for probably a decade.
I think so. I think the type of person that's on the extreme left is naturally going, because the kind of person it is, they're usually more open to I've had my fair share of crazy sex.
Sure.
Obviously the babysitter. But
oh, we all remember the G.I. Joe story. That's based legend here.
But you have they're more sexually loose people. And I'm not unless they're bad or good, but just what they usually do, more drugs, or they're more liberal with drug use. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's something you could say for that having some mental connections as well, right?
So, yeah.
And so I think mental illness is going to run a little higher with Democrats.
Yeah.
And then when you have
that's a proven fact. 4-1, they suffer from mental illness compared to Republicans. 2-1 compared to independents.
Really?
Yep.
I just thought it.
They suffer from mental illness at a 4-1 ratio compared to conservatives, and a 2-1 compared to independents.
That's so funny.
That's
Bunch of cuckoos.
It is. It's and the problem is they only consume media from the left. And the media from the left was basically spent the last 4 months astroturfing a campaign for Kamala Harris and telling these people it was in the bag. Never once did they set their audience up for the potential of a letdown. And on this show,
it's not going to happen.
my audience is mostly Trump supporters, right? On this show, we were breaking down the numbers. We were following the money. And when it looked like Trump was doing poorly, we called him out. I'm like, I would break it down. I'd say, look, this is what he's doing wrong. He needs to adjust and fix this. He needs to stop doing this, whatever, or he's going to lose. And I wanted to make it clear to my audience, there was a legitimate chance he could lose because it's my responsibility to not lie to people and tell them that all's peachy and all's okay. And I was telling people, even when things look good, don't spike the football yet. They can still lose this election. It's not that far off. And they didn't get that from the media. And I think a lot of conservative commentators were saying that, but they didn't get that from the media they were consuming. All they got was, we're winning. She's going to cruise to this historic landslide victory.
She's going to win with women.
Yeah.
The abortion thing's a huge thing.
And it wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't.
It was a big deal, but it wasn't as big as they thought.
I think it was the night of or 2 nights after the election. They were saying that very thing. They were saying, like, abortion wasn't as big of an issue as they thought it was going to be. And they said, because essentially now abortion's up to the states.
Yep. Yeah.
And a person in Pennsylvania doesn't really care if someone in Alabama can get an abortion.
Nope. You vote for yourself.
You vote for yourself.
That's what it is.
And in Pennsylvania, they can still get abortions.
Yep.
So they don't really care. Like,
exactly.
I can get one, fine. It doesn't matter to me. And it's not like people are getting abortions like haircuts.
Yeah.
Everybody needs one. You know what I mean? So it's not like it's this like pressing issue on top of me constantly. I still have access to this, regardless, no matter what, right? Because I live in Pennsylvania or New Jersey.
Yeah.
So I'm going to vote for Trump.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to get rid of abortions altogether. He's just not going to force it to be a federal issue.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a bit. So it's crazy what you said about that. It wasn't the issue they thought it was.
Well, and it was just the way they patronized men.
Yeah.
Like, you saw some of the ads that they centered their ads around porn and video games. And I'm like, what do you like? So you're basically reducing the average man to porn, weed, and video games. That was basically what their approach was. Hey, we'll let you jerk off. They ran like 4 different commercials about porn. It was so fucking weird. It was
Republicans want to stop you from that.
I've heard Republicans say porn is damaging, which it is, but I've never heard a Republican go, myself included, who has his own personal opinions about it. I've never met a Republican who was like, yep, it's time to ban porn. Like, it's not a policy for either side.
Yeah.
They're making shit up, and like, it doesn't work anymore because the media is no longer streamlined through a couple different organizations. You have all this alternative media, podcast, the internet, etc., where people are going to get their news, and they know that porn is not a central issue. They know. They're like, oh yeah, no one's talking about porn. What are you talking about? No, I want more money, and I don't want to get drafted to go fight in Ukraine. That's my big issue. I want the immigration thing to get fixed.
Stuck to the same issue over and over again.
It is.
Was the economy,
immigration,
inflation,
yep.
immigration,
America
and inflation.
first. Yep.
Immigration and inflation.
Yep.
Immigration. It just kept running, and then like, honestly, it was. And looking back on it, from an independent perspective, looking back on it, it looked like almost they weren't paying attention.
The Democrats?
Republicans.
Oh,
but they were paying more attention than Democrats.
Never interrupt your opponent when he's making a mistake.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Exactly. Really, that's what
we're not going to distract. We're not going to talk about porn because that's not an issue.
That's not the issue.
Let's talk about the economy.
It was for that North Carolina governor's.
That was an issue that was his personal issue, though. That was not.
I'm the pornographic Hitler.
Mia still thinks that he was set up. Mia still thinks it was a setup.
He was set up.
It was a conspiracy. That was his username.
Yes, he was.
That guy.
He was set.
So many specific details.
I have a theory. Do you want to hear my theory?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
What is your theory?
It was his wife and his brother. They worked together for the past 12 years, setting this guy up, making this whole account, because only they would know these details about him, So they worked.
Why would they do that?
I don't know. I got to find a motive. Why would his wife...
And then work on the campaign with him, just to be like, all right, you know what? Now's the chance. Spring the trap.
But this stuff was happening before he was involved in politics. So that's the question is did they know 15 years ago?
Yeah.
One day, and they're like, we got to put a contingency plan in so Mark can never be governor. Like, we know this is coming.
Yeah.
Like I that was obviously an outlier, that
Yeah.
situation. But just in general, Republicans, 'cause, again, like I said, during the election, it seemed like they weren't paying attention to what Democrats were doing. Democrats were saying all this stuff about abortion, access to pornography or whatever,
Yep.
marijuana use, and all the different things. And Republicans would just be like, "Oh, that's interesting." They wouldn't even say that. Just be like, "Oh, okay." So big potato chips are $8 a bag.
Yeah.
now. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yep.
all these different things, and
$9 for a thing of Coke now. Like, it's crazy.
yeah, exactly. Cereals, $5 a box. And they would kept saying the same thing over and over and over and over again, to the point like you almost was like beating a dead horse. Like, I get it, the economy sucks. I do get it though.
Yeah.
But then
But it worked.
it did work. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it didn't work. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it was a bad strategy, but like they just kept doing it. But it almost seemed like they weren't paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
And Democrats, on the other hand, were attacking all these different things that really they had this, they had these these bullets in their magazine for 4 years, waiting for Trump to come back.
Yep.
Oh, we're gonna hit him on being a rapist, on being a sexist,
Yeah,
on
nobody
being a
cares.
racist,
Yep.
on being all these different things.
Yeah.
All this stuff, on his handling of this and that and COVID. He killed all these babies during COVID.
Yeah.
He wants abortion to be stopped. All these different things that they were like, we're waiting for it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we got you. We got you. You know what I mean? And it's like the whole time they were so focused on attacking this monster that they were ignoring the fact that bacon is ridiculously expensive.
Yep.
That eggs.
Yep.
We had a whole thing with eggs.
Yeah.
Where people were like, you can't even egg someone's house on Halloween. You know what I mean? Because it's too expensive now. You know what I mean? The whole thing is like,
That's what tipped the scale on my vote.
Yeah.
I went to go egg my fucking asshole neighbor's house, and I go, hold on, no chance.
yeah.
Bob's an asshole, but he's not this bad. He's not $7.99 bad.
Like, the whole joke was like, you egg someone's house, they come outside and go, it must be nice to have that kind of money. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, same thing with toilet paper. You know what I'm saying? You can't even do that stuff
Can't
anymore.
TP a house anymore. Yep.
Yeah, it's too expensive. That guy's not worth that $40.
Vandalism is too expensive. It's absurd. I'll
And
tell you.
So
Go ahead.
that's, I guess, I don't mean to go off on a tangent.
No,
That's
you're good.
that's my whole thing. Was
I'll-
just like,
I'll give a prediction that I don't think my audience will like, but I'm going to say this because I've been thinking about this for the last couple weeks, and I finally found the way to put it into words the way I want to. My fear with Republicans is that they overpromised, and I don't think they did it intentionally. I think they spoke a little too generally, and they didn't make it clear on the grocery issue. So I've told you guys before, the issue with the grocery thing is, go to the grocery store right now. Save for a few items that the prices can bounce back and forth on. What you see at the grocery store right now is likely the lowest it's going to be for the rest of your life. And the second lowest will be tomorrow because of inflation. Prices, more often than not, on most goods don't go down. What you have to do is you have to create an environment, or you have to foster an economic environment that makes it so wage growth once again outpaces inflation, like we had most of the time under Donald Trump. So things seem like they're cheaper. So my concern is that they ran on groceries are too expensive, and people took that as, okay, that means they're going to bring the price of groceries down. The price of groceries aren't going to go down for the most part.
yeah,
They're not.
they're stuck.
You have to hope that your wages outpace that. That's all there is to it. So now there's some things they can do that can bring them down a little bit, but inflation's going to cancel that out. And then you combine the fact that incumbent parties never do good during a midterm. So I feel they're probably going to lose the House in 2026. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just saying the wording was a little too vague and overgeneralized. And that's why I feel like it could lead to problems 2 to 4 years from now, because the price of groceries, like, you kind of gave your opponent ammo, because the price of groceries for the most part is not going to go down. They're going to say, look, bacon was $6.99 when you took over, and now it's $7.75, and you said you'd make it go down. And it's like, well, it only went up 75 cents in 4 years as compared to $3 when you guys were in office. But you're right, we did technically get that wrong. We said we were going to lower the prices. So even if wage growth outpaces inflation, you've already given your opponent ammunition 4 years from now, because inflation's a given. That's my only concern with it. And I wish they would have been a little bit more clear and concise with what they said. But hey, cheap groceries sells a lot easier than we're going to create an economy where the conditions are so good that wage growth will outpace inflation.
You won't
doesn't
notice,
tell the average
you won't
person.
notice the $5 eggs. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
It doesn't work that way. That doesn't sell to the general public. Do you have any thoughts before we go on to the lead topic here? We're going to talk UFOs in a second.
Before we go off to the aliens,
Yes.
I just want to say one last thing about this. Okay, is how out of touch Democrats were with this election, to me, shows with the post-election TV shows where they're asking, how could this have happened?
And they have no idea. They didn't even fathom
They're
it.
like dumbfounded. Like, how could this happen? Everyone's a racist. Everyone's a misogynist. And it's like, no. Like, you can't say that. And then like someone said, I went like on The View, and they're going back and forth about this. And one person on The View will be like, well, no, not all 72 million people that voted for Trump are racist.
Yeah.
That's impossible.
Now, we all do hate women, but that's a side story. That's
But like, and like they can't wrap their minds around this idea that maybe, just freaking maybe, people don't think it's as bad as,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because they lived it for 4 years. It's tough to sell to someone that it's going to be this horrible dictatorship when they already lived under it for 4 years. And they see through the bullshit, and they see that the stuff he's saying does not really align with fascism or dictatorship.
If he was truly a fascist, he would have held on to power.
Oh, yeah. He'd still be, we'd be in what? We'd be heading into year
8 or
year 9 of President Trump if he were a fascist. Yeah.
King Trump.
Of the dynasty.
King Daddy, he'd probably call him.
King Daddy would be his thing. That sounds like a DJ at a gay bar. King Daddy. I changed shirts, everybody. I got too hot in my hoodie. Okay. All right. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, be sure to click the link in the description to get the full episode on Rumble. If you prefer to listen along, you can actually get us on Spotify, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. You can also go to www.outlawstreamers.com to learn more about not just my show, but tons of other great shows and all the exciting projects they have coming up. Follow my socials at Caleb Isn't Funny on Twitter and Instagram, at Caleb Salvatore Comedy on the Chinese Spy app that is TikTok, and be sure to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thanks, and we'll see you every Saturday for brand new episodes of That's Based. Peace.